The hospital report felt like holding a live grenade. Sophie stood in our kitchen doorway, her 9-year-old face pale as winter snow, clutching her backpack straps like they might anchor her to something safe. "Dad, promise you won't be sad," she whispered, and my heart dropped into my boots. I'd been home 3 days recovering from hernia surgery, shuffling around in pajama pants and making jokes about feeling like a busted-up old truck. Claire had been working late at her wellness spa every night since I got out of the hospital. Said she couldn't afford to lose clients while I was laid up. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I set down my coffee mug on the kitchen counter, trying to keep my voice steady. Sophie pulled a folded paper from her jacket pocket. Her hands shook. "My friend Emma's mom works at the hospital. She's a nurse. She saw Mommy there yesterday and she said to give this to you. She said, 'Don't tell Mommy anything.'" The paper crackled as I unfolded it. Medical lab results. Claire's name at the top. My eyes scanned down the page and the world tilted sideways. Multiple health conditions transmitted through close contact. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, herpes, all positive, all recent. All while I'd been faithful for 15 years of marriage. "Jesus Christ," I breathed. "Daddy?" Sophie's voice sounded tiny and far away. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw the fear in her eyes. She didn't understand what the paper meant, but she knew it was bad. She knew it would hurt me. And she'd carried this burden home from school like a little soldier. My hands started shaking. Not from the surgery pain, but from pure rage building in my chest like a pressure cooker about to blow. "Sophie, go pack a bag. Clothes for a few days. Your toothbrush. That stuffed elephant you sleep with. Are we going somewhere? We're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a while. What about Mommy?" I folded the lab results and slipped them into my wallet. Mommy's going to be just fine without us. 20 minutes later, I'd thrown some clothes in a duffel bag and loaded Sophie into my pickup truck. I left a note on the kitchen table. "Claire, we're gone. Don't call. Don't come looking. We'll talk when I'm ready. Eli." As we pulled out of the driveway of the house, I'd spent 10 years renovating with my own hands. Sophie asked, "Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced?" I glanced in the rearview mirror at our home shrinking behind us. "I don't know yet, kiddo, but things are going to be different now." That was the understatement of the century. I had no idea just how different things were about to get. My parents lived 20 minutes across town in the same ranch house where I'd grown up. Dad was in his 70s now, but still sharp as a tack. Mom still made the world's best meatloaf and asked too many questions. When I showed up at their door with Sophie and our bags, they didn't ask questions. They just opened their arms. "Eli's having some trouble with Claire," I told them quietly while Sophie watched cartoons in the living room. "We need to stay here for a few days." Mom's face creased with worry. "What kind of trouble?" I pulled out the lab results and handed them over. Dad put on his reading glasses. Mom read over his shoulder. I watched their expressions change from confusion to shock to anger. "That lying little—" Dad caught himself before finishing the curse in front of Sophie. "How long has this been going on?" Mom asked. "I don't know yet. But I'm going to find out." Dad folded the papers and handed them back. "What do you need from us?" "Just a place to stay while I figure out my next move. And maybe someone to watch Sophie while I do some investigating." "Consider it done," Mom said. "That poor baby doesn't deserve any of this." That night, lying on my childhood bed in my old room, staring at glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck to the ceiling in 8th grade, I made a decision. This wasn't going to be one of those civilized divorces where we split everything 50-50 and wished each other well. Claire had humiliated me, exposed our daughter to God knows what, and destroyed 15 years of trust. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that I didn't play to lose. The next morning, I dropped Sophie off at school and drove straight to Claire's wellness spa. The place was housed in a converted Victorian mansion on Elm Street, painted soft purple with white trim. A wooden sign out front read, "Serenity Springs Wellness Center. Massage, aromatherapy, holistic healing." What a load of crap. I parked across the street and watched through my truck's windshield. Claire's white BMW was in the parking lot. So was a silver Mercedes I didn't recognize, and a black pickup truck that looked familiar, but I couldn't place. At 10:30, a man in an expensive suit walked out the front door, adjusting his tie and looking around nervously. He climbed into the Mercedes and drove off fast. 20 minutes later, another guy emerged, younger, wearing scrubs like he worked at the hospital. He got into the black pickup. I sat there for 2 hours, watching men come and go. Some stayed 15 minutes, others stayed an hour. None of them looked like they were getting aromatherapy. My phone buzzed. Text from Claire. Where are you? Sophie's school called. They said you picked her up yesterday and she's not there today. I typed back, she's safe, we'll talk soon. Eli, what's going on? Why won't you answer your phone? I turned the phone off and shoved it in my glove compartment. Around noon, I drove to the Broken Anchor, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where I sometimes grabbed a beer after work. The owner, Jules, was a 60-year-old woman who'd lived in town her whole life and knew everyone's business. Well, look what the cat dragged in, Jules said as I walked in. Heard you were laid up after surgery. Getting better every day. I slid onto a bar stool. Buy you a coffee if you've got time to chat. Jules poured herself a cup from the pot behind the bar. What's on your mind, Eli? What do you know about Claire's spa? Jules' eyebrows went up. Specific question. Any particular reason you're asking? I pulled out the lab results and slid them across the bar. Jules read them, her expression darkening. Son of a witch, she muttered. I'm sorry, Eli, I really am. So you know what's going on there? I've heard rumors, nothing I could prove. But there's been talk around town about that place offering more than just massages, if you catch my drift. What kind of talk? Jules leaned across the bar, lowering her voice. The kind where married men pay cash for services their wives don't provide. The kind where your wife isn't just running a wellness center, she's running a very specialized business. My hands clenched into fists. How long? Maybe 2 years, started gradual-like. First it was just regular massage therapy. Then word got around that certain clients could get extra attention for the right price. And you didn't think to tell me? Jules straightened up. Eli, I don't spread gossip about people's marriages. That's between you and Claire. But since you're asking directly, and since you've got medical proof she's been stepping out, she shrugged. Now you know. I finished my coffee and left a 20 on the bar. Jules, if anyone asks, we never had this conversation. What conversation? That afternoon, I called my old Army buddy, Frank Delaney. Frank had been a military police officer, then worked as a private investigator after he got out. He was gruff, barely sober most days, but sharp as a razor when he needed to be. Eli Granger, Frank's gravelly voice came through the phone. Heard you were under the knife. How you feeling? Like my wife's been screwing half the town while I was laid up. Silence on the other end. Then, you want to talk about this in person? Yeah. Can you meet me somewhere? My office, 1 hour. Frank's office was above a pawn shop downtown. The stairs creaked as I climbed up, and the hallway smelled like cigarettes and old coffee. Frank opened the door before I could knock, a habit from his cop days. You look like heck, he said. Feel worse. I handed him the lab results. Frank read them twice, then set them on his desk. What do you want from me, Eli? Evidence, photos, video. Whatever it takes to prove she's running an illicit operation out of that spa. That's going to cost you. How much? $500 a day, plus expenses. Could take a week or two to get what you need. I pulled out my checkbook. When can you start? Already started. Soon as you called, I drove by the place. Interesting clientele they've got over there. Frank opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a manila folder. Inside were photos taken with a telephoto lens. Men entering and leaving the spa, license plate numbers, timestamps. You've been watching the place? For about 6 months. Got hired by a woman whose husband was spending too much money on massage therapy. Turns out your wife's been very busy. He spread the photos across his desk. I recognized several faces, guys I knew from around town, married guys, guys with families. Jesus, Frank. How many clients does she have? Regular rotation of about 20 men. Some come weekly, some monthly. Cash only. No credit card records, no paper trail. Very professional operation. Professional. I laughed bitterly. My wife's a professional. Eli, before you go down this road, think about what you want to accomplish. You want a divorce? You've got grounds. You want custody of Sophie? This evidence will help, but if you're looking for revenge, I'm listening. Frank leaned back in his chair. Revenge is messy, it's expensive, and it usually hurts innocent people along the way. Your daughter, for instance. My daughter's already hurt. She's the one who brought me the lab results, Frank. A 9-year-old kid had to tell her father that her mother's a hoe. Frank studied my face for a long moment. Okay, but we do this smart. No violence, no criminal activity. We destroy her reputation and her business, but we do it legally. Agreed. Good. Because I've got an idea that'll shut down her operation permanently and leave her with nothing. He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First, we document everything. Every client, every transaction, every violation of city ordinances. Then we coordinate with the health department, the zoning board, and the IRS. By the time we're done, she won't be able to run a lemonade stand in this town. I watched him write, feeling something cold and hard settling in my chest. Claire thought she was so smart, so careful. She had no idea what was coming for her. One more thing, Frank said, looking up from his notes. Are you prepared for what we might find? This could get uglier than you think. It's already ugly, Frank. Now let's make it public. The next morning, I drove to the spa and parked right in front. No more hiding across the street. I wanted Claire to see me. I walked through the front door like I owned the place. The reception area was decorated in soft pastels with new age music playing softly. Behind the front desk sat a young woman with bleached blonde hair and too much makeup. Can I help you? She asked. I'd like to book a massage with Claire. I'm her husband. The girl's face went white. Oh, let me get her. She disappeared through a door marked private. I heard muffled voices, then Claire appeared, wearing a flowing dress and fake smile. Eli, what a surprise! What are you doing here? Thought I'd see what all the fuss is about. This place has quite a reputation around town. Claire's smile flickered. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. I pulled out the lab results and set them on the reception desk. Interesting reading material. Claire's face went from white to red. She grabbed the papers and shoved them into her purse. We need to talk. Privately. No, I think right here is perfect. I raised my voice just enough that anyone in the back rooms could hear. So tell me, Claire, how long have you been offering full-service massages? Eli, stop it. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I laughed. That's rich coming from someone who's been screwing strangers for money while her husband was in the hospital. The front door chimed, and a middle-aged man in a business suit walked in. He took one look at the scene and started to back out. Don't leave on my account, I called out. I was just asking my wife about her special services. Maybe you could recommend one? The man practically ran out the door. Claire grabbed my arm. Eli, please. Let's go somewhere and talk about this like adults. I shook her off. Adults? You want to talk like adults? Okay, here's some adult conversation for you. I'm filing for divorce. I'm taking Sophie. And I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of business you've been running. You can't prove anything. I smiled. Want to bet? That afternoon, Frank called with an update. Got some interesting information about your wife's business partner. Business partner? Dr. Mark Halprin. He's been providing medical services to Claire's clients, STD testing, birth control, that sort of thing. Also been sampling the merchandise. If you know what I mean. The name rang a bell. Isn't he married to that real estate agent? Linda something? Linda Halprin. And she has no idea what her husband's been up to. Yet. What do you mean, yet? I mean, wouldn't it be terrible if someone accidentally sent her copies of the photos I've been taking? Photos of her husband entering and leaving the spa at all hours? I felt that cold, hard feeling in my chest expand. That would be terrible. Tragic, really. Especially since she's got a temper like a rattlesnake and access to every piece of real estate gossip in town. Frank, you're a genius. I have my moments. There's more. I've been tracking the spa's clients, and several of them are married to women who work at the hospital, the school district, and the city clerk's office. Once word gets out about what Claire's been doing, it'll spread like wildfire. Exactly. Small towns love a good scandal, especially when it involves hypocrisy and love. That evening, I sat Sophie down for a conversation I'd been dreading. Sweetheart, you know Daddy and Mommy are having some problems. Sophie nodded. She'd been quiet since we left home, picking at her food and asking when we could go back. Well, we're probably not going to live with Mommy anymore. It's going to be just you and me for a while. Is it because of that paper I brought you? Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. Partly. Mommy made some choices that hurt our family. But I want you to know that none of this is your fault, okay? Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and other grown-ups have to deal with the consequences. Are you going to hurt Mommy? The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? You look angry all the time now. Like really angry. I don't want you to hurt anybody. I pulled Sophie onto my lap. I promise I won't hurt Mommy. But I am angry, and I'm going to make sure she faces consequences for what she did. That's different from hurting someone. Okay. Sophie leaned against my chest. I miss our house. I know it, baby. We'll have our own place again soon, just you and me. That night, after Sophie was asleep, I called Frank. It's time, I said. You sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I'm sure. Okay. Tomorrow morning, Linda Halperin gets a very interesting package in her mailbox. By noon, half the town will know about Claire's spa. By evening, the other half will know. And by the end of the week, your wife will be out of business permanently. I hung up the phone and stared out the window at the dark street. Claire had started this war when she decided to betray our marriage and expose our daughter to her lies. But I was going to finish it. And when I was done, she'd have nothing left except the consequences of her choices. Linda Halperin got Frank's package at 8:30 the next morning. By 10 o'clock, she was standing in the lobby of her husband's medical practice, screaming loud enough to shatter windows. I know this because Frank was parked across the street, recording everything with a camera that had excellent audio pickup. You lying, cheating piece of garbage, Linda's voice carried across the parking lot. How long have you been screwing that hoe at the spa? Dr. Mark Halperin tried to calm his wife down, but Linda was just getting started. She threw a manila envelope at his face and photographs scattered across the lobby floor. Pictures of Mark entering and leaving Claire's spa. Timestamps clearly visible. 2 years, Mark. 2 years you've been lying to me. While I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for your stupid boat and your stupid golf membership, you were paying for love. Frank's video captured everything. Mark's face going pale, Linda's fury, the other patients in the lobby staring in shock. By noon, the video was making the rounds on social media. By evening, it had been viewed 3,000 times. Claire called me 6 times that day. I didn't answer. The next morning, I drove to the spa. There were protesters outside. 3 middle-aged women holding signs that read "Shame on Serenity Springs" and "Protect Our Families." I recognized one of them as the wife of a man I'd seen in Frank's photos. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The blonde receptionist was gone, replaced by an older woman who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Is Claire available? I asked. She's not seeing clients today. I'm not a client. I'm her husband. The woman's eyes widened. Oh, I'll get her. Claire appeared a few minutes later, looking haggard. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup. She'd aged 5 years in 3 days. What do you want, Eli? Just wanted to see how business was going. Looks a little slow today. You did this. You and whoever you hired to spy on me. I didn't do anything, Claire. You did this to yourself. I want to see Sophie. That's not going to happen. She's my daughter, too. She's a child who doesn't need to be exposed to any more of your lies and drama. Until this is settled in court, she stays with me. Claire's composure cracked. Eli, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. I'll close the spa. I'll do whatever you want. What I want is for you to have thought about the consequences before you decided to become someone who crossed that line. The words hit her like a slap. She flinched, tears starting to form in her eyes. It wasn't like that. It started as just massage therapy. Then some clients asked for more, and the money was so good. Spare me the sob story. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Claire, you might want to check with your accountant. The IRS tends to get interested when businesses deal exclusively in cash. Her face went white. You didn't. I didn't have to. Turns out when you run a business that operates outside the law, lots of government agencies start asking questions. Funny how that works. That afternoon, Frank called with more updates. City inspector showed up at the spa this morning. Turns out they've been operating without proper permits for adult entertainment services. Also, the health department wants to inspect the premises for sanitary violations. How long before they shut her down? Week, maybe 2. But here's the interesting part. 3 more wives have come forward with evidence that their husbands were clients. They're talking about filing a class action lawsuit against Claire and the spa. Alienation of affection, emotional distress, the works. Even if they don't win, the legal fees alone will bankrupt her. I felt a grim satisfaction. What about Mark? His wife filed for divorce yesterday. She's asking for everything, the house, the practice, the boat, his retirement accounts. And she's demanding he get tested for every STD known to medical science. Publicly, very publicly. She took out a full-page ad in the newspaper, listing all the tests he needs to get and suggesting that anyone who's had contact with him might want to get tested too. I had to admire Linda's style. She wasn't just divorcing her husband, she was destroying his reputation so thoroughly he'd never recover. There's one more thing, Frank said. I've been tracking the spa's finances, and Claire's in deeper trouble than you might think. She owes back taxes, hasn't been paying her business insurance, and there's a lien on the building for unpaid rent. How much trouble? The kind where she's going to lose everything and probably face criminal charges for tax evasion. That evening, I was helping Sophie with homework when my phone rang. Claire's number. Daddy, is that Mommy? Sophie asked. Yeah, but we're not going to answer it right now. We're doing math problems. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again, and again. After the fifth call, I turned the phone off. Is Mommy in trouble? Sophie asked. Yes, sweetheart, she's in a lot of trouble. Because of what she did at her work? Because of choices she made. Bad choices that hurt people. Sophie was quiet for a moment, working on a multiplication problem. Then she said, I don't think I want to see her right now. Why not? Because she lied to us. And lying is wrong. Out of the mouths of babes. My 9-year-old daughter had figured out what it took me 15 years to learn. Claire was a liar, and liars couldn't be trusted. You're right, kiddo. Lying is wrong. Will she go to jail? I don't know, maybe. Good, Sophie said, and went back to her math problems. That night, lying in my childhood bed, I thought about how far we'd come in just a week. Claire's business was collapsing, her reputation was destroyed, and she was facing legal and financial ruin. But I wasn't done yet. She'd humiliated me, betrayed our marriage, and exposed our daughter to her lies. She deserved everything that was happening to her, and more. Tomorrow, Frank and I were going to make sure she got it. The town's annual Founders Day festival was scheduled for Saturday morning in the park downtown. Every year, local businesses set up booths, families brought picnics, and the mayor gave a speech about community values and supporting local entrepreneurs. This year was going to be special. Frank and I had been planning for 3 days. We'd printed flyers, made phone calls, and spread just enough rumors to ensure a good crowd. By 10 o'clock Saturday morning, half the town was gathered around the gazebo, waiting for the mayor's speech. Claire was there too, looking desperate and out of place. She'd set up a small table with brochures about legitimate massage therapy services and a sign that read Serenity Springs, under new management. Too little, too late. I stood at the back of the crowd with Sophie, who was eating cotton candy and watching the local high school band tune their instruments. She had no idea what was about to happen. The mayor, Bob Hendricks, stepped up to the microphone. He was a round man in his 60s who'd been giving the same speech for 20 years about family values and community spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, welcome to our annual celebration of what makes our town special. Honest work, strong families, and businesses we can trust. That was Frank's cue. He walked up to the gazebo carrying a cardboard box and whispered something in the mayor's ear. Bob's face went from cheerful to confused to horrified in about 10 seconds. Bob said into the microphone, it seems we have some community business to address before we continue with the festivities. Frank took the microphone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Frank Delaney, and I'm a private investigator. Over the past month, I've been conducting an investigation into illegal business practices in our community. The crowd stirred. I could see Claire at her table, frozen like a deer in headlights. Specifically, Frank continued, I've been investigating a business that's been operating under the guise of a wellness center while actually providing illicit services to married men in our community. The crowd erupted. People started talking at once, heads turning to look around, trying to figure out what was happening. Frank pulled a stack of photographs from his box. I have documented evidence of over 20 married men from our community paying for inappropriate activities at Serenity Springs Wellness Center. He held up the first photo, a clear shot of a man everyone recognized entering the spa. The man's wife, standing about 10 feet from me, let out a shriek that could be heard 3 blocks away. That lying cheater, she screamed, pushing through the crowd toward Claire's table. Frank kept going, holding up photo after photo. With each one, another wife in the crowd realized her husband had been cheating. The noise level rose from murmurs to shouts to complete chaos. Claire tried to pack up her table and leave, but she was surrounded. Women were yelling at her. Men were trying to slink away unnoticed. And children were asking their parents what those services meant. Furthermore, Frank announced over the noise, the owner of Serenity Springs, Claire Granger, has been operating this illegal business while married and while her 9-year-old daughter lived in the home. That got everyone's attention. People turned to stare at me and Sophie. I put my hand on my daughter's shoulder. Daddy, Sophie whispered. Why is everyone looking at us? Because Mommy's in trouble and people are upset about it. Claire finally broke free from the crowd around her table and ran toward us. Her face was streaked with tears and mascara, her hair wild. Eli, please, make them stop. This is humiliating. You're right, I said calmly. It is humiliating. Now you know how I felt when I found out my wife was a hoe. The word carried across the suddenly quiet crowd. Everyone heard it. Everyone saw Claire's face crumple. Please, she begged. Think about Sophie. She doesn't need to see this. I looked down at my daughter, who was watching her mother with a mixture of confusion and disgust. Sophie, I said, do you want to talk to Mommy? Sophie shook her head. No, I want to go home. We are home, sweetheart. This is our town, and these are our friends and neighbors. Mommy's the one who doesn't belong here anymore. Claire let out a sob and ran toward the parking lot. Several of the angry wives followed her, still yelling. Frank wrapped up his presentation by announcing that all the evidence had been turned over to the appropriate authorities and that anyone who wanted copies of the photos for divorce proceedings could contact his office. The festival continued, but the mood had changed completely. Instead of celebrating community values, everyone was gossiping about the scandal. Children were asking questions their parents didn't want to answer. Marriages that had seemed solid were suddenly under suspicion. I'd accomplished exactly what I set out to do. I'd destroyed Claire's reputation so thoroughly that she'd never recover from it. But as I watched Sophie finish her cotton candy in silence, I wondered if the cost had been too high. Daddy, she said finally, are people going to be mean to me at school because of what Mommy did? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. In my quest for revenge, I hadn't fully considered how this would affect Sophie. She was innocent, but she was going to pay a price for her mother's sins and my need for payback. Some people might say things, I admitted, but anyone who matters will know that you didn't do anything wrong. I hate her, Sophie said quietly. Sophie, you don't mean that. Yes, I do. She made everyone stare at us. She made you sad. She ruined everything. I knelt down next to my daughter and looked into her eyes that looked just like mine, thankfully, and nothing like Claire's. Sophie, what Mommy did was wrong, but hating people only hurts you, not them. We're going to be okay, just you and me. We're going to build a new life, and it's going to be better than the old one. Promise? I promise. As we walked back to my truck, I could hear people still talking about what had happened. Frank's revelation had been the biggest scandal in town history, and it would be talked about for years to come. Claire's car was gone from the parking lot. So was her table in her pathetic attempt to salvage her business. She was probably at home right now, crying and trying to figure out how to put her life back together. She was going to have a long time to think about it, because I wasn't done with her yet. Monday morning brought news that Claire had been arrested, tax evasion, operating a business without proper licenses, and several health code violations. Frank called me at 7 a.m. with the details. She spent the night in county lockup, he reported. Bail's set at $50,000. Can she make bail? Doubtful. Her bank accounts are frozen pending the tax investigation, and I doubt anyone's going to loan her the money after Saturday's performance. I felt a grim satisfaction. How long will she be in jail? Depends on how fast her lawyer can work. But even if she gets out today, she's got bigger problems. The district attorney is talking about filing additional charges. What kind of charges? Racketeering, money laundering, possibly child endangerment, since Sophie was living in a home where illegal activities were taking place. The child endangerment charge bothered me. Not because I felt sorry for Claire, but because it meant Sophie might have to testify about what she knew and when she knew it. Frank, I want to make sure Sophie's protected in all this. She's been through enough. Already handled. I talked to the prosecutor this morning. They're not going to involve Sophie unless absolutely necessary, and if they do, it'll be in closed session with the child advocate present. Good. There's more. Remember Dr. Mark Halprin? What about him? He tried to end himself last night. Pills and whiskey. His neighbor found him and called paramedics. I was quiet for a moment. I'd wanted to destroy Mark's life, but I hadn't wanted him to die. Is he going to make it? Yeah, he'll live. But his medical license is under review. His wife cleaned out their joint accounts, and he's facing his own set of criminal charges. Turns out providing medical services to unregistered clients engaged in illicit activities without reporting it is a felony. Jesus! Eli, you need to ask yourself how far you want to take this. You've accomplished what you set out to do. Claire's business is destroyed, her reputation is ruined, and she's facing serious jail time. At what point is enough enough? It was a good question. I'd started this journey wanting justice for what Claire had done to our marriage and our family. But somewhere along the way, justice had turned into revenge, and revenge had turned into something darker. I don't know, I admitted. Well, you better figure it out fast, because the story's about to get bigger. Channel 7 News wants to interview you about the scandal. They're calling it Small Town Secrets, how a wellness center became a front for illegal services. I'm not talking to reporters. Smart. But Claire might. She's desperate enough to try anything at this point. That afternoon, I picked Sophie up from school and could tell immediately that her day had been rough. She was quiet in the truck, staring out the window instead of chattering about her classes like usual. Bad day? I asked. Some kids said mean things about Mommy and about me. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. What kind of things? They said my mommy was a bad lady who did bad things with men. They said maybe I was bad too. I pulled the truck over to the side of the road and turned to face Sophie. Listen to me very carefully, I said. You are not bad. You are not responsible for anything your mother did. Anyone who says different is wrong and they're being cruel. But what if they're right? What if I'm bad like Mommy? Sophie, look at me. I waited until she met my eyes. You are the best thing in my life. You are kind and smart and brave. What your mother did has nothing to do with who you are. Then why do I feel so ashamed? The question broke my heart. In my quest to punish Claire, I'd forgotten that Sophie would have to live with the consequences too. She'd have to grow up in a town where everyone knew her mother was involved in something shameful. She'd have to deal with whispers and stares and cruel comments from other kids. Sophie, do you want to move away from here, start over somewhere new? Her face lit up for the first time in days. Could we? Yeah, we could. I can run my construction business from anywhere. You could go to a new school where nobody knows about any of this. What about Grandma and Grandpa? They could visit us. Or maybe they'd want to move too. Sophie was quiet for a moment, thinking it over. Would we have our own house? Absolutely. Just you and me. And Mommy couldn't find us? The question revealed more than Sophie probably intended. She wasn't just embarrassed by what Claire had done, she was afraid of her. Mommy's going to be in jail for a while, I said carefully, and when she gets out, she'll have to follow rules about seeing you. But if you don't want to see her, you don't have to. I don't want to see her ever again. That evening, I called Frank and told him about my conversation with Sophie. You're thinking about leaving town? I'm thinking about giving my daughter a chance at a normal life. That's probably smart. This story's going to follow you both for a long time if you stay here. What about Claire's legal situation? Do I need to be here for the trial? You'll probably have to testify, but that's months away. No reason you can't relocate and come back when needed. Good. I want to be gone before she makes bail. Eli, there's something else you should know. Claire's been trying to call you from jail. She wants to talk. I don't want to hear anything she has to say. She claims she has information about other illegal activities in town, names of people who knew what was going on and didn't report it. She wants to make a deal. Let me guess. She wants to trade information for a reduced sentence. Something like that. The prosecutor's interested, but they want to know if you'd support a plea agreement. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No, she made her choices. She can live with the consequences. I'm not helping her get out of this. Fair enough. What about the house? You're still married, so you both own it. She can have it. I don't want anything that reminds me of her. That night, I sat down with Sophie and showed her pictures of houses for sale in other states. We looked at places in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. Small towns where we could start over, where nobody would know our history. I like this one, Sophie said, pointing to a photo of a farmhouse with a big yard and a tire swing hanging from an oak tree. That's in North Carolina, about 6 hours from here. Is it far enough away that people won't know about Mommy? Yeah, sweetheart, it's far enough away. 2 days later, Claire made bail. Someone, I never found out who, posted the $50,000 to get her out of jail. But by then, Sophie and I were already gone. We left early Wednesday morning while the town was still asleep. I'd sold my construction business to my foreman, Lenny, for half what it was worth just to get out fast. Our belongings fit in a U-Haul trailer, and we were on the road by 6 a.m. As we drove past the spa on our way out of town, I saw that someone had spray-painted Ho House across the front windows. The building looked abandoned and sad, like a monument to poor choices and broken dreams. "Daddy," Sophie said from the passenger seat, "are you happy we're leaving?" I thought about the question as we reached the town limits. Was I happy? I'd gotten my revenge. Claire was facing jail time, financial ruin, and social disgrace. Her business was destroyed, her reputation was in shambles, and she'd lost her daughter. But I'd also lost 15 years of my life to a lie. I'd learned that the woman I'd married and trusted was capable of betraying me in the worst possible way. And I'd put my daughter through trauma that would probably affect her for years. "I'm happy we're starting over," I said finally. "Just you and me." "Me too." As we drove south toward our new life, I got a text message from Frank. "Claire tried to end herself last night. She's in the hospital, stable condition. Thought you should know." I read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no regret, no pity. Claire had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. Sophie and I had our own consequences to deal with, but at least we were dealing with them together, in a place where we could build something new and clean and honest. 3 months later, we were settled in our farmhouse in North Carolina. Sophie was doing well in her new school, making friends who knew nothing about her mother's past. I'd started a new construction business and was already getting more work than I could handle. One evening, as Sophie and I were sitting on the front porch watching fireflies, she asked, "Do you think Mommy's okay?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Do you care?" Sophie thought about it for a long moment. "A little bit, but not enough to want to see her." "That's okay. You don't have to forgive someone just because they're family." "Good, because I don't think I ever will." That night, after Sophie was asleep, I sat in my workshop and thought about everything that had happened. I'd set out to get revenge on Claire for betraying our marriage, and I'd succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. Her life was completely destroyed, and she'd lost everything that mattered. But in the process, I'd learned something important about revenge. It's a double-edged sword that cuts both ways. Yes, I'd hurt Claire, but I'd also hurt myself and my daughter in ways that would take years to heal. Was it worth it? I honestly didn't know. But it was done, and there was no going back. All I could do now was focus on building a better future for Sophie and me, far away from the wreckage of our old life. Claire had wanted to play games with our marriage and our family. She'd thought she was smart enough to get away with it. She'd been wrong.